All right, hey guys, I'm Michaela Yates, and I'll be presenting on chapter 5, and then Zach will present on chapter 6. This chapter is a lot about similarities that we have with other mammals and how our brain works and kind of those survival instincts. The most basic or primal part of our brain is referred to as the reptilian brain. And one of the really interesting things that is in this part of the brain that we have in common with other mammals are our emotions. That's something that is recognizable on any human or mammal. Even the more complex emotions you can see in these pictures, the similarities between this dog and this little boy, that they're both showing their teeth, scrunching their nose, and you can tell that they're both angry. In this chapter, there are some different people mentioned and kind of some of the discoveries that they made that helped us better understand trauma and kind of how it works and what's going on in our brain. Both of these theorists are known for a lot of the discoveries that they made, but one of the really important things in this chapter, particularly, Charles Darwin, he helped us get a really basic understanding of kind of what is going on when someone's experiencing PTSD. When someone's experiencing this, they're in a prolonged state of that fight or flight in their sympathetic nervous system. And he realized that this is a really important thing for our survival, that our bodies react this way, but it's not a state that we should be living in for a long time. Another theorist is Pavlov. He's known for his experiment with his dogs. When he would ring the bell, they would salivate because they were expecting a treat. And he also learned that you could do the opposite as well. So after they had this behavior, he could ring the bell and not give them a treat. And eventually they learned that no longer was associated with getting a treat for them. And for people, we can do a similar thing. This is called extinction, and it's something that's used in cognitive behavioral therapy. So if someone had gotten in a car accident, for example, and every time they went to get in the car, they got really sick and their body was kind of going into that survival mode because they were afraid that they would get in an accident again. As they have more positive experiences and a chance to rewire their brain, then they're able to no longer experience that fight or flight when they would get in the car. He also realized that by accident, his dogs ended up trapped during a flood, and the dogs had different temperaments, and they also were resilient in different ways depending on the temperament that they had previously to the trauma. So your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system are both really important. Your sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight, unnecessary systems shut off, like digestion. Your system will either shut down or get rid of things that you don't need to help you prepare to either fight or run. And your parasympathetic nervous system is what helps bring you back down after a spike, and it slows your heart rate, it promotes healing, it helps your body function properly. And it's really unhealthy for us to live in our sympathetic nervous system. If you think about like having like a little kid that goes around and they make messes all day, if you didn't have someone to clean that up and you just simply had that constant mess making and there was chaos and you're trying to live in that, then it causes a lot of problems. So you have to have that cleaning time or that healing. And your parasympathetic nervous system is super important. While you sleep, your body's able to reset and to heal. And if you don't have that, it causes a lot of problems. There was actually research done where they were able to study what happens when someone lives in a sympathetic in their sympathetic nervous system, and their body's not ever having that chance to relax. And about a year ago, my dad actually got in a really bad car accident. He was hit head on by a semi truck, and for a long time has been living in that sympathetic nervous system. And it's been really interesting to see the effect that's had on his brain, and that his body has been in survival mode. And so there's a lot of things that he used to be able to do, and multitasking is one of those things, and his brain simply can't do it anymore. And so it's taken a lot of therapy and working with professionals to be able to get his body to activate that parasympathetic nervous system and trying to recover from that. And kind of the last thing is your mirror neurons as well as your vagus nerve are both two things that are really important for helping to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. They help with connection, and when we're able to connect with people, that creates a sense of safety and activates that system as well. But a lot of the time, people who've experienced severe trauma have a hard time connecting with people because they have a hard time feeling that safety. And so emotional support animals have actually been really successful in helping people to have that connection and that safety. And they've seen a lot of success with dogs, horses, and dolphins as well.
Awesome. And so chapter 6 had a ton of information. It really started diving into how people, how their bodies react to traumatic experiences, as well as how to start overcoming traumatic experiences. One of the first principles it talks about is agency. And agency is just when a person feels in control or in charge of what's going on in their life. There was a study done in 2019 with 286 kids in the Jordan Valley. The study focused on the relation between agency, life satisfaction, and trauma. The study found that those who were able to exercise more agency in their life or feel more in control of their life were able to increase their life satisfaction. The increase of life satisfaction also increased the ability of the child to mitigate symptoms that come with trauma, showing that as people had more agency and a higher life satisfaction, the negative effects of trauma were decreased. The next point that Van der Kolk talks about is that of alexithymia. I can never remember how to say that word right, and depersonalization. So alexithymia is just the inability that a person has after going through trauma to connect their emotions with the physical problems or changes going on in their life. This is seen, usually the person will have a lack of emotional awareness, a lack of social attachments, and they start registering emotion as physical problems. Typically what will happen is there will be a trigger or a situation that occurs, a person feels an emotion, and then they'll have a behavioral or a physical reaction to the situation. Someone with alexithymia has an inability to connect the emotion and the physical reaction. So it's seen when people engage in a behavior but are unable to acknowledge or recognize the connection between the two. Van der Kolk describes depersonalization as a step down from that, a step down the ladder of self-oblivion. Depersonalization is a detachment or separation of the body. It's often described as a person becomes a husk or a shell of the person they used to be, or they live in a phantom state. Paul Schleider observed that patients complain that they are capable of experiencing neither pain nor pleasure, and they become strangers to themselves. In the bottom right corner, there's a poem. I think it covers that greatly and just kind of describes the mental state of someone going through depersonalization and alexithymia. The final point that Van der Kolk, or one of the final points he makes, is befriending your body. He really starts diving into how someone can overcome trauma and the first steps they make. So one of these first steps is being able to understand and recognize how their body, so the person who went through trauma or traumatic experience, how their body reacts to the environment around them. Throughout the chapter, it talks about how people who with trauma, they'll numb the bad emotions. Their body will naturally do that. And they'll also numb all the other emotions they feel. Brene Brown has a quote, I'm sure most of you guys have heard it, but we cannot selectively numb emotions. When we numb the painful emotions, we also numb the positive emotions. So it's not until people can slowly reconnect their actions to the emotions that they can start processing trauma. Vander Kolk explained that when he's working with someone and helping them in the healing process, he doesn't start with emotions. He starts more with sensations, so stuff like heat, pressure, that sort of stuff. And then he'll work his way up as they begin to be able to process and make those connections. He ends this section by saying, individuals who lack emotional awareness are able with practice to reconnect their physical sensation to psychological events. Then they can slowly reconnect themselves. So throughout I guess that's the last slide. Go ahead and leave your questions in the, and then we'll respond to them later on. Thank you.